Now, presenting today, we have the CEO of the Sales Readiness Group, Makela. Everybody already has their webcams on, so this slide doesn't really help that much. It's better to see you guys live, so I love it that you guys already have your cameras on. We have also Tyler Lessard, VP of Marketing at Vidyard, and Jamie Shanks, the CEO at Sales for Life. Welcome, guys. And Ray, please get us started here.
Outstanding. Well, thanks for kicking us off, Alonzo. And yeah, this is live and in full color, right? So you're seeing the process here as we get started. Thrilled to have our speakers join me today because this is a topic we're really passionate about. And I believe we brought together a panel of really industry experts to talk about this idea of digital engagement, about generating our own pipeline, about how do we personalize our sales interactions. I mean, these are things we're hearing from our clients every day, questions about how to do it better, how to engage virtually, you know, what does that look like in the new world? So I'm really thrilled to be here with Tyler and Jamie and to have this conversation. I'll just say, so a little bit about our perspective. So as Alonzo mentioned, I'm a managing director at Sales Readiness Group. We're a sales and sales management training company. And so our focus is typically from, we booked the first meeting, now how do we get it closed? And Jamie and Tyler are going to talk to us about, well, how do we fill up the funnel? How do we book more meetings? How do we kind of get that started? So just by way of introductions, Tyler, if I could, why don't you say a little bit just about your role and kind of your background as you bring to this, and maybe a little bit about Vidyard, and then we'll weave that in as we have this discussion.
Yeah, that's great. So Tyler Lessard here, VP Marketing at Vidyard. I'm the marketer on this session. So for all of you salespeople out there, I'm sorry. Yes, it is my fault, and the leads are shitty. So I'm here because here at Vidyard, we have tools for video in the sales process, recording and sending custom videos. And I spend a lot of my time working with sales teams on how they're using video content throughout for prospecting, for customer engagement, and so on. So here to share some of those perspectives, seeing what I've seen from within our community, and hopefully give you guys a couple of actionable takeaways on how you too can be doing things like video. So great to be here, Ray. Thanks.
Outstanding. Well, yeah, thanks for joining, and look forward to diving into this in more detail. So Jamie, I mean, we've done a few events like this together and enjoyed the opportunity to collaborate once again. And I know you have some new research and some new perspective on all of this that you've been putting together. So anxious to dive into that first. But Jamie, maybe you could say a little bit about yourself and Sales for Life as well.
Fantastic. I'm the CEO of a company called Sales for Life, and we are a training program specifically for self-generating pipeline at scale. And our focus is really on the three pieces. One is the learning side. So what are the sales plays that you run to create pipeline? Two, we feed our customers with intelligence, not only from a big central database of every sales play that's worked in our customers' history, but also a managed service to provide you the signals to show you how to create opportunities right now in an account. And then an application. We are a system, we are a software as well that allows you to run with our plays and continue those plays along a journey.
Outstanding. Well, let's get into it because I know we have a lot to cover here, but what we wanted to do is kind of keep this high level from a agenda perspective and then really have a discussion. So we're going to start with building on Jamie's topic here and conversation around self-generated pipeline. What do we really mean by that? What are some ways to do it? And especially now and going forward, what does that look like? Then we're going to talk about humanizing that selling experience. So getting into the next level of detail about, well, how do we make that connection, especially in this world where we're spending 6 or 8 hours on virtual meetings all day, and our customers are, frankly, maybe getting a little bit of Zoom fatigue or whatever platform they may be using. So how do we humanize that? How do we connect? How do we do that synchronous and asynchronous, right? What can we do to enhance that? And then kind of an interesting topic to close with, we'll talk about educating and teaching our customers, helping them buy virtually or digitally. So the world is changing, and what we're finding is there's, depending on or regardless of where they are in their buying process, it's a little different today than it maybe was even 6 months ago. And so what can we do to help them along that journey and really partner with them to get to the end game? So that's where we're headed. I want to really jump in here and talk first about enabling the sales team to generate this self-generated pipeline. We always talk about a sales process and the customer's buying process, right? What's the journey they're going on? I think as a sales training company and a lot of sales organizations spend a lot of time on the bottom row here. What's the sales process? What are the steps? Maybe you call the stages different things, but you know, from booking the first meeting and planning that call through closing, what has to happen? But we often forget, where is our customer along that journey? And we know that they're further along now than they've ever been. They've probably done a lot of online education, but we need to meet them right along that journey. We need to build the relationship. And you know, the arrows go backwards because sometimes they can take a step back. We need to meet them and guide them forward. So we think a lot about, where is the customer? How do we know where they are? How do we help them through? But the piece that we may be missing is, well, how are we really even targeting the right accounts, right? Before we start that process, are we really going after those that are going to make a difference? And to Jamie's point, how do we help them generate their own pipeline? Because Tyler, I mean, you kind of called it. There are never going to be enough good leads, right? And that's always going to be a constraint. So what can we do, right, to build that pipeline already? So this is kind of the premise. We're going to start with that. You know, are we targeting the right accounts? What are we doing? And how can we really go forward on that self-generated pipeline? So to start that conversation, and Jamie, I'm anxious to have you share some of your content around this, but I'd love to hear from our audience. We'll get the first interaction here. And this is really around how much of your reps' pipeline is currently generated is self-generated, right? So what are they doing? Are they able to generate, or are they getting all the leads from Tyler, right? And that's great because they have more leads than they can handle. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll, right? Nice work, marketing. But just to say, okay, is 25%, you know, of their pipeline self-generated, 25 or 26 to 50, 51 to 75, 76 to 100. I see numbers all across the board here. This is going to be really interesting. We'll keep this open just for a few minutes and then publish it. But, you know, Tyler, Jamie, I'd love to get your thoughts. What are you guys seeing from some of your clients just before I publish from our audience today? And, you know, what does that look like? Jamie, maybe you could go first, you know, in terms of self-generated versus marketing generated.
I typically see subscale and or companies that have done Series A, Series B, trying to get towards, you know, 5, 10, 50 million ARR. They really started their pipeline creation efforts with a tailwind, marketing driven. And then as they have to expand product sets and their total addressable market gets bigger and bigger, eventually that percentage of the tailwind required or even provided can't make up the difference. And so when you start getting into the hundreds of millions and billions, the sellers are required many times a 50-50 split. 50% is going to come from channel and marketing, 50 is going to have to be their own self-generated.
Outstanding. And Tyler, from a marketing perspective, yeah, what are you seeing, and what are you seeing from some of your clients?
I mean, I think that every company should be 100% sales generated pipeline to make marketing's job a lot easier, but that's just not the reality. And right. You know, what's actually been interesting from my perspective is I see a lot of the same things as Jamie noted. Depending on the size of the organization, the maturity, things change a little bit. But what else has happened is right now, like over the last 6 months, I've heard more and more organizations increasing the expectations on sales generated pipeline. As they are focusing more and more on direct communication, targeted account programs, and working within, you know, cross-sell, upsell opportunities when it's a difficult time, not to make any excuses, but for marketers to get in front of people because their budgets may be tight. They may not be paying attention to as much and so on. So we are seeing a surge right now from a lot of our clients saying we need our sales reps to generate more of their own pipeline.
Absolutely. And Tyler, I'll just build on that, and I'll give credit to Matt Hines, because at least I heard it from him first. Had the idea of you can't grow tomatoes in winter, right? So, you know, from a lead generation perspective, right, you can be doing everything right, but if people they don't have budgets, maybe they're even downsizing, it's really hard to book that first meeting. Can we go back to our existing accounts, right? Can we nurture those that we've already talked to? Can they actually target accounts that are more likely to convert, right? They have a better growing season or whatever the analogy. So anyway, I really enjoy that. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. This is really interesting. So the lead response here is about 26 to 50%. Let me share the results here. 26 to 50% of pipeline is self-generated, but it's a real mix. It's interesting. It's kind of evenly split. So about 20%, 19% of our audience says not very much, right? 0 to 25% is self-generated. but 27% is generating pipeline. So that's really interesting to see that, 76 to 100. Any observations or comments on this?
No, I mean, so you've got the Pareto's law here. So 20% of the audience has a marketing or channel tailwind for them. But that means 80% of everybody else here, like owning 20%, 25% or greater required self-generated, that's significant, right? That is not I'll prospect when I feel like it, weather. So now everyone else on the call, the other 80% on the call, have to become consistent here.
Yep. Any other thoughts on that, Tyler?
Yeah, no, I think I'm not surprised to see the results. I think there is a lot of disparity in different organizations in how this is approached. But I am a little bit surprised at how many are in that more than 50% self-generated, which again does come back to Jamie's point. And I think what we were emphasizing was we need to get out there, but we also need new ways to do this, because I know we don't have a poll for it, but I wonder how many reps are actually overperforming or even hitting quota that are required to generate more than 50% of their own pipeline. So that's a whole other story in and of itself. Are they doing it effectively? So, but Jamie, I think you're going to talk a bit about that, aren't you?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on, because I had the same thought. It's like, okay, we want them to generate that much, but how are they doing relative to quota, and how are they doing generating their own pipeline? So let's move forward here. Jamie, I know you have some slides and some background. We've got a lot to go through, but wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of tee this up and talk about that idea of having sellers generate pipeline. So maybe you could walk through kind of the little bit of the research and the story that you have around that part of the cycle.
Yeah, and everybody bear with me. I'm going to go fly at 30,000 feet and then get very tactical with you to give you tips. At a strategic level, we deal with chief revenue officers and chief marketing officers of mid-market and global customers. And there's a study done by it's Gartner and CSO Insights has been studying this since 2011. The percentage of sellers that are making their quota. 10 years ago, 60% of sellers would make quota, 40% would. Now, before COVID, we were at a 50-50 split by the year 2018, 2019. For sure, that's not going to be a 50-50 split in 2020. So the pervasive challenge is, as a chief revenue officer, as an investor in a business who typically invests in human capital and people, they put teammates on their team. Right now, 50% of the bets they're making are not achieving target. So that's ultimately a problem. So that means that the market and the buyer has evolved faster than the seller could even keep up. So if you go to the next slide, so now if you have to first pervasively believe that problem. We at Sales for Life believe that chief revenue officers as investors need to think more strategically about how they deploy capital. People, process, and technology is how you spend money, right, as an investor. Right now, what do? They go to replace, find, or hire new headcount as their play. That's an incremental sales play to an exponentially growing problem, right? So you put a $100,000 seller into a seat who wants to achieve $1 million quota. But if you have 100 other sellers not achieving quota even by 5 or 10%, your miss is so exponentially large that one seller or two sellers can't backfill that problem. So what you have to start thinking about is a different strategy. And we believe it's yield per seller, right? Think if you owned a farm, you only have so much land. So you need to grow your crops more than you had the year before. So that's where we want to go with this idea. So if we go to the next slide, how do we start increasing the yield per seller? It all is going to start, and again, at the most strategic level, first have the mindset as a leader to understand the way that you're taking money now is filling teammates on a team that right now are having a 50-50 bet if they'll even make quota. Incremental growth to an exponentially growing problem. On the right-hand side is, what if we could get everybody to create one more opportunity a month or a quarter? Compound that over 100 sellers or 1,000 sellers or even 20 sellers. And if you have a win rate of 25%, that means you would actually close 5% more revenue. But it's a multiplier effect. It's a compounding, like interest. And the returns are so much greater. So let's now, to the next slide, jump into how we actually do this. First, you have to understand that there's already data that exists to help you engage customers in a bold and different way. I'm a big believer that prospecting is a left brain and a right brain motion. The left brain is the mechanical rote data collection that helps the right brain, the creative side, generate sales plays. So here is an example of a customer of ours in Boston who, after becoming knowledgeable of the plays that work because they've gone through an experience, a learning experience, they've dissected the plays, the engagement strategies. What you see here are what are called signals. Sphere of influence means relationship mapping. You've got job change congratulations, which is a time-based signal. We're going to come to signals in a second. And they even know on the right-hand side what mediums of communication are best to deploy to their C-level executives. They go after the Chief Human Resources Officer. What you see in this data is that video is outperforming text-based messaging substantially. So everything about prospecting is understanding this and reverse engineering to improving your yield per seller. So if we go to the next slide, if you understand,
and actually, let's pause there, Jamie, because I think this is super important. And also I want to get Tyler's input as well, which is if we believe that we can improve that yield per resource, right? And for those of us who have hired sales teams and built sales teams, we know how hard that is. And I think your $100,000 per rep, I mean, yeah, maybe that's at cost, but when we think about the ramp up cost, the training cost, the recruitment cost, you know, they've got 6 to 12 months till they're even at quota, right? I mean, it's exponential, the cost of that, and probably, you know, 12, 18 plus months before you even start to see a return. Tyler, I know that video aspect is obviously critical, and I'm even seeing video for all on your board back there. So, right. You know, what are you seeing as well in terms of how video comes in and that opportunity to engage? Because what we want to do, right, is more conversations, more opportunities.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, the real spirit of this is that as digital sales reps, which we all are now, we have to start to be able to embrace different ways of connecting with people online through different channels and not just get stuck in our traditional ways of saying, yep, I email and I connect on social and I make calls, right? So that stuff's great, but there's actually quite a number of different modes of interaction and engagement that you're missing out on that you may not even realize today is possible and is actually quite easy. And I think the savviest reps are starting to learn that. We're doing skills training, and things like video is one of those, where it is actually, frankly, easier these days to record and send a quick video to a prospect than it is to type out an email trying to convince them to
100%.
click on that link to say book a meeting, right? Or if somebody you've just connected with on LinkedIn, to send them a quick video introducing yourself, explaining how it is that you want to help them. And by the way, not only is it faster to do that, the response rates consistently are proven to be much higher when you do it well. And so that is like, we're now in another exponential conversation here, where if I can do it faster and it generates a better result, right, we're very quickly moving towards, you know, higher efficiency and effectiveness as reps. And that's how we need to think about this.
And the ability, sorry, Tyler.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because a lot of people, when they see the word video, we keep going, it's like immediately they're like, that's hard, it's an obstacle, it's expensive. And it's like, no, it's actually invert that thinking and think, how can I use it to be faster, more efficient, more effective, and close faster? Over to you.
And as a leader, most of the time, you're constantly encouraging your sales team. We need to up level our call point. Our call point being, you're calling on managers, I need you to call directors. You're calling on directors, I need you to call the VP. So what you're seeing here on the right-hand side is, at WorkHuman, they discovered that when they actually could have strategic conversations at the C-suite, the Chief Human Resources Officer, their win conversions over their competition, it was like the competition didn't exist. But if they fell below the C-suite, they got stuck in that tactical conversation, win rates fell off a cliff. So they needed to figure out a way, what engages the C-suite in a bold and different way that our competition just isn't doing. And that was that competitive advantage. We could have humanized conversations and strategic conversations, because imagine I'm recording what we're saying right now. Think of all the ideas, we call it, I almost lost words here, what I'm trying to find, but I'm able to synthesize all these ideas in a way I can't in the written word.
No, absolutely. And we'll get into that more. And actually, Marla had a great question in the discussion about, do you recommend attaching video or in an email, or what's the best practice? We're going to get into that. So love that. Hold that for a second, Marla. We'll get back to it when Tyler talks a little bit more about best practices there. But Jamie, I know I interrupted your story a little bit.
No, let's
wanted to get
keep
back
rocking.
to it, which is, this is exciting because what we're talking about is, how do we enable, right, that self-generated pipeline? If we can do things that make us more effective, to book more conversations, we're going to perform at a higher level. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, you know, how decision making's changed, and what does that mean from a customer perspective as you're going through that buying process?
Exactly. So Alonzo, can you go up a slide one for a second? So WorkHuman, their certification happened pre-COVID. What you see here in their sales plays, in their engagement, 33% of all global opportunities were created using a signal, which I'm going to explain more in a second, called relationships. It says sphere of influence, which is a type of signal. Whereas look at the one that says event invite, 26%. Now this is pre-COVID. Now I'd like you to go to the next slide. And these are all of the sellers globally that we have certified since COVID hit Europe in February and in North America in March. What you're seeing is that the plays are adjusting based on what's happening in the market. The sphere of influence, which is a relationship-based sales play, has created now 66% of the global opportunities. What you don't see is the event sharing play expanding. You're seeing other plays, and you'll notice that 48% of all opportunities, it says email video and LinkedIn video, are half the pie. On the far right, engagement medium, the yellow and the red make up 50% of every opportunity created globally amongst thousands of sellers selling into different verticals and industries and buyer personas. So understand that our market evolves. So if you go to the next slide, let me explain what a signal is. Best prospectors in the world, those that understand self-generated pipeline at scale, are given a total addressable market. Every one of your sellers has a TAM. That TAM could be geographically focused, verticalized, and or named account focused. Here's the pervasive problem. The study that we talked about, 50% of sellers don't make quota. Well, Topo, which is now owned by Gartner, studied those 50% that weren't making quota. What they found was that 83.4% of the people that didn't make their quota could be chalked up to one major problem: poor time management. Poor time management is because they have 50 accounts in their TAM or 100 accounts in their TAM, and what do? They give love to all the accounts, which is the exact opposite thing you want to do. What a signal is leveraging data to make intelligent decisions. So let me explain some of the ones you see on the screen. Time-based signals. What if I monitored every C-suite that takes a job in your market or leaves? That's a time-based trigger. Relationship. What if I reverse engineered your existing customers and looked for advocates that left those and went into your net new accounts that you want to target? 6 times cheaper and easier to sell to those types of relationships. That's called the sphere of influence. Workload consumption. What if I could monitor net promoter score within your software, or I could look at usage data and I could do referral sales plays based on the people that were the power users of your solution? Or content consumption, which is also known as buying intent. What if I monitored everyone that was reviewing content on your website in real time and could engage them? So the best in class, if you go to the next slide, use signals to segment their accounts objectively before they start conversations. So they don't just start blinding calling A through Z in a database. They actually pick out top 5s every week, every month, every quarter, and they focus on those based on signals. And what they do is they back up, which I'm going to talk to you about now, storytelling, and they build value creation stories that are based on one of these 3 pillars. The only way you can create value for somebody is you either make them more money, you save them money, or you mitigate their risk. Everything else is a feature, an advantage, and a benefit that does not drive a business forward. And I'm going to pause and let Ray and Tyler add to this if you want, but to me, when we're going to get into storytelling now, you must first back up and create something that drives true outcomes for people. Otherwise, your story is going to fall flat.
Absolutely. No, and Tyler, I want to hear your response to that, because this really resonates with me from a call planning and a preparation perspective as well, which we talk about, you got to get into the mindset of that customer, think about where they are, and think about, I mean, to your point, how are you going to help them make money, mitigate risk, or save money, be more efficient? If you can go in with a premise around that, right? That's selling. We're starting to bring insights to them, but we need to do that in a way that really engages and piques their interest. So Tyler, I'd love to hear, and then we'll transition, because I know you're going to talk about executing that, but maybe you could make the connection to what Jamie was saying.
Yeah, from my perspective, it's, this is exactly the mindset you have to have, and also you have to layer on the context of the situation of the business, because, even a business you're selling to, depending on the timing, depending on market conditions, depending on where they're at, things may shift in terms of the value that they're looking for from you. So you can't just take the same, I'll make you money via this way story into each key account, because again, it has to be contextualized into their business. And that's where I love, Jamie, your direction on using the signals. I know our own team, we do this, we live by it. We have, probably countless different signals coming into both our marketing and sales teams that are informing people who is showing either the greatest intent, or who is, matching those that are in a state that are most likely to convert. And let's focus our energy there and spend time together creating really targeted programs, using videos, using storytelling, right? Put that extra energy into those accounts, lean into them. So exactly the way we try to practice things at Vidyard. Not sure we always do it right, but that's what we try to do as well.
Yeah, and Ray, I know I'll be very concise in my next couple slides. I can see the timer clock. I can see it in Ray's eyes. So everybody, very quickly, how do I put all this together? Tyler's here because we're all bullish on video. I believe it's Seth Godin's purple cow. It is the unique thing that people aren't doing right now. Why? It has 3 competitive advantages. I'm humanizing myself. I can synthesize complex pieces of information in a minute, and I can track buying intent. It is a form of a signal. So if you go to the next slide, let's pull, okay, perfect. So now we're into the agenda. Team, so ultimately the most important piece here is you've got to be able to connect signals to sales plays that actually are laced in value.
Well, and what you were saying, I'll just go back here for a second, also resonates with me, because when we talk about selling to the C-suite, and hey, that's always been the task that hasn't changed during COVID, right? That's always been, hey, how do we get higher? How do we execute? But we better have something to say, and we better speak their language. And so, the idea that you can only sell value to people that can actually appreciate and buy value. Otherwise, you're selling on price. So we better hit them at a level that talks to their biggest concerns. And is that making more money, saving money, mitigating risk, right? What are the top priorities? How do you make that linkage? And then Tyler, how do we tie that in an engaging way, right? Where you can offer a video, or you can provide that in a very succinct manner. So let's go there, right? How do you humanize that selling experience, and do that when we can't meet with our customers? And I know there's really interesting research coming out saying some of that's never coming back. So, if you're a pharma rep and you're used to just popping by and seeing the doctor, or you're used to being able to, be there in the scrub room and visit with them, some of that access is going to be even more challenging or non-existent. So we better find ways to do that virtually. We better be able to humanize that and do it remotely. So Tyler, maybe you could take us through a little bit about how Vidyard comes in. Before we do that, sorry, we just wanted to get a little bit of perspective again on this poll, which is, love to hear from, so I'm going to go ahead and close this.
And I already know the answer to this one. I can smell the answer.
Are we placing side bets, Jamie? Let's get in the chat, buddy. Let's get a side bet going.
All right, yeah. So the question here is, let's hear, before we go into how we can really operationalize that, right? Make it tactical, but what percentage of your reps are currently using recorded videos somewhere in their sales process? Could be in prospecting, could be in following up on a proposal, could be in, engaging other stakeholders, but where are they, and what percentage of your reps are using that? So just while we're waiting for some of the responses to come in, sure, well, let's hear what you guys have to say. What's your experience been? Tyler, let's start with you.
So, and with respect to this poll question?
Yeah. What have you seen from customers?
Thankfully, in our organization, we'll go into the top end of this, but I think more and more, I think the important thing is we're seeing this trend increase. So we're still very much in the infancy of people using, let alone using Zoom, recording and sending custom videos, very much in our infancy. So for those of you that are listening and going, I don't even understand when you talk about sending a recorded video to a client, don't worry. I think you're actually part of the norm. But I think what's exciting is the early adopters are seeing such huge wins from it initially, that all the signals are there that it's something that we're going to continue to see drive forward. And this is going to start to spread out, especially in this virtual world where, more and more of us are going to be at home all the time.
Right. I guess we should do a poll at the beginning of the webinar and then after the webinar, right?
That's right.
See if we're actually making a difference. Jamie, what's your experience?
Alonzo, you forgot to put 0 to 5%, because that's actually
okay.
I mean, because we're training at the global enterprise, and you're talking thousands of sellers, and there'd be only a handful in a company of 1,000 reps that would be pervasively using this.
Yeah, so I think both of you have definitely your finger on the pulse here. So I'll share the results. 77% of our audience today, very large group, so 77% said it's somewhere less than 25%. And like you said, Jamie, maybe that's basically 0, but they're not using it. And we have a small percentage, so 6% that says 75% or more are using recorded videos, and kind of a breakdown there. But not surprising, lots of room for opportunity, but I think the research is really compelling that those top performers that are doing it are doing quite well. And if we can eke out a little bit more of that self-generated pipeline, right, to tie this together, that's a huge ROI. So let's talk about, how we do that. One thing before I'm going to stop sharing the results. I appreciate everybody participating, and we're getting some good questions as well. So I would encourage you, if you have a question in the Q&A, and we may try to take it in line or respond to it, and we'll have Q&A time at the end. But feel free to comment if you want to chat in as we go along with some really great responses. So love to make this collaborative. So let's follow on. Let's talk about humanizing the selling and buying experience and what that looks like, Tyler.
Yeah, so to answer your question, how do we humanize the sales process? How do we create these experiences that really stand out and enable us to tell stories, to put ourselves out there? The answer is just to be on Zoom calls all day long with your customers, right? Isn't that it? No.
We love that.
No, it's not, right? And as much as you would love to do that, they don't. And we can't rely on, booking a Zoom call, getting on there, talking about the weather, talking about sports. I mean, that is an important part of the process, but we can't rely on it in and of itself. So I want to share a really quick story here with you guys about me as a buyer recently. This was just a few months ago that hopefully this is relatable for some of you. I was out buying a new vehicle. My 4-year lease was up on my previous vehicle, and I was going out to buy a new one. And coincidentally, this was happening during the COVID lockdown period. It was around March, April timeframe. And so I couldn't even go into a dealership, even if I had wanted to. But I wanted to show you what happened here, because it was actually a really inspiring story. So me and my wife were out looking to buy a new vehicle. And this is what the images Google serves up when you say buying a car. But I think we all know people don't buy cars like this anymore. People don't buy anything like this anymore. Ray, if you want to click ahead, this is how me and my wife looked when we were actually buying a car, right? Like buying anything else, right? That's not us. I don't look nearly that good. But we're online, we're searching, we're reading reviews, we're watching videos about different vehicles, we're narrowing our search down. We're not going into a random dealership looking to be sold to. So we did our research ahead of time, like anybody's going to do for your business. Now, we narrowed it down to 3 vehicles, and we found 3 local dealerships that carried those vehicles. And so I filled out the contact us form, that contact us form, really great, on each of their sites. And this is one of those tale of 3 sellers. So 2 of those dealerships responded with their templated form email. Thanks so much, blah, blah, blah. We can't do test drives right now. Please be patient. I think they threw in unprecedented times, at least 3 times. It's great. The 3rd rep from the 3rd dealership, if you click Ray, sent me back this within about 3 hours of me filling out the form. So on the top left is what I got sent. This is a real screenshot from my inbox, and it was a video.
Nice Cadillac. Yeah.
Well, it's all right actually. From Will Hearn, and you see his name there. who I now call my buddy Will Hearn because of the way that he connected with us. So he sent me back an email, and he was at the dealership, and where he was allowed to be. And he took the time to record me a quick video to introduce himself and to actually show me one of the vehicles that was similar to what I had put in the form. So he hit record. He said, "Hey, it's Will here. We want to introduce myself. I'll be working with you here at the dealership. I know you can't come in right now, so I wanted to walk you through. We have one very close to the specs you put in. I want to show you what it looks like. I'll show you the good and the bad. I'm going to walk you through it." And it was about a 7-minute video where he walked me through with his camera. You could see in the bottom left, he showed me everything, right? And at the end of the video, like, this was, to me, I was like, oh, like, this is great. Like, thank goodness for the pandemic, because this is a way better buying experience. Like, I don't even want to go into those other dealerships. Like, I got to do a test drive before I go, but this is great, right? And then the image on the top right was after a few exchanges, he sent me a video walking through pricing. So he sent me the PDF, right? But for those of you who bought a car, there's all this like ridiculous, like there's like transport fees and weird taxes and shit. And you're like, I don't understand what all this is. Where do you have wiggle room? And so he recorded a video actually talking through the different line items and explaining them in human terms, what they meant, just as if we were sitting face to face at the dealership, right? This was an amazing asynchronous remote buying experience where I never once had to schedule time to go through a buying process, right? It was brilliant. And I sent him back the odd video saying, "Hey, this is me, what I look like. So now we can, be familiar with each other." Right. And if you click once more, Ray, I think I've got a couple bullet points here on what I thought was a really great takeaway from this experience, and I'll move on from it. So it was simple, it was immediate, it was on demand, it was friction free, right? Like, that's just like, boom, I could consume it and move forward, right? The other ones, they said, let's book a meeting in 2 weeks when I can open the dealership. Like, you're done. It was clear and high value. He showed me rather than just told me, right? So I could see it. It was, of course, personal and trustworthy. The last one is a really interesting point, though, which I realized afterwards, was it got him in front of the entire buying committee immediately. And that buying committee was me, my wife, and my 4 kids, right? They all had a say because they're going to be sitting in those back seats. Right. I showed them all the video. I said, "Kids, come check this out." And they're like, "Who's that guy?" I'm like, "It's Uncle Will. Come listen to Uncle Will tell you about this car," right?
My new favorite salesperson. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So I know, long story, but the point here is, if like this makes sense in our consumer world, this can be the B2B buying experience about whatever you guys are selling out there. You're not selling cars, right? But what are you selling? There is a way to do this sort of thing. If Will can do it, you can do it. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide here, Randy, and dig into this a little bit more.
I'd just like to summarize that because I think it's really important. We got a question from Alan along the way, and I think it's one we hear a lot, which is, well, where do I go and how do I develop professional quality videos, right? Because there's this bar that's been out there of, oh, you got to go to a studio with a green screen and you got to pay production staff. And you can see from this, how long did this take him? 5 minutes? Maybe he did a couple of takes, but even so, it's self-generated. And I love the idea of being able to do that. I also think, frankly, the bar's been lowered a little bit, so it's easier to stand out, even with just a little bit of professional, development. I got a $25 stand that holds my phone that has a ring light attached to it and a teleprompter app where I can even script it and use it. And it's great. It sits on my desk. It highlights it. And so the ability to do that without feeling like you need to go to the studio or have a production crew has gotten exceptional. And I'll just reiterate, we have a client, so thinking about this in a B2B setting, that a medical client in Europe that makes hospital beds, transport devices, right, safety equipment. They're having a really hard time getting into senior living facilities, assisted living facilities to show equipment. Now they can do a live or recorded demo of that equipment, 3-dimensional, right? They walk around it, they operate it, they show the levers, and it's the best demo that you could ever have versus, hey, let me show you some slides and give you a 20-page PDF of that. So anyway, it really resonates with me. I love that.
Yeah. So let me share a couple of other quick examples. And I think this is just to emphasize the fact that, when we talk about sending videos as part of the sales process, don't box yourself into thinking like, this is what that's for, right? Like, that's a great example where for Will, he's trying to sell some cars, so he's using it as part of that first touch process. In the top left is one of our customers who uses it paired up with outbound account-based marketing campaigns, where she sends out a mug with a cactus in it because there's this really fun play they have on something being a prickly situation. And then she sends them a video in parallel where she's holding up that swag and saying, hey, hope you got the, the cactus that I sent you. I wanted to explain a bit more what that was about, da, 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 da. They've used that to book some of their biggest deals that ultimately ended up closing for them. And what they're finding is people will respond faster, they'll respond more amicably and more personally when they get that video because you've suddenly been introduced to that person. But there are other ways, as you see on here, you can do screen recordings to show what you do. It's not just about a novelty act to stand out. It's about, hey, I want to help you. I want to share information. There was a question here from Regina on sending Vidyard videos and like how long should they be? Are they going to get through firewalls? What's happening here is they record a video and you're not attaching the actual video file. It's one click. It adds the image of that video, which when you click on it is a link to watch it on its own page. And so you move past that hurdle of getting through the inbox. But the second thing is, to your question, keeping it short and quick in most cases, especially if it's early on. It's like the movie trailer, right? The video doesn't have to be your whole movie. You don't have to tell them about everything you do. It's about getting their interest, getting that story out there, and then, moving on to, let's talk more about this. Let's try to get that call book because we do still want to do something live. So there's lots of ways in which you can use it.
And two things just from the screenshot that I think might be subconscious objections you might all be building in your head. Number one is going to be ageism, and number two is going to be about localization. All three of us on the call are over 40. But Tyler, unless you're younger than me, I have no idea. But so our customers over the age of 40 are actually outperforming using video than their customers under 40 because of business acumen, value creation through great storytelling, through experience. I've been in this market for 20 years. I can tell you what's going on, pitfalls, challenges, best practices. So do not let age be a barrier. Number two, geography. Right now, our customers in the Middle East and in Latin America are on fire using this medium and these are the two of all of the companies we train globally, the two that have the most pervasive face-to-face culture is in the Middle East, called the GCC, or in Latin America. And they've transformed themselves knowing they can't leave their own countries in Colombia, they can't leave Dubai in the Middle East, but they can humanize this experience. Do not let cultural barriers misconstrued you to think that this can't be done in your market.
Yeah, it's such an important point, Jamie. And there's even things like we hear, but from an industry, oh, well, I sell to these kinds of people. And it's like time and again, but actually the key word in that is people, right? You sell to people. This is a human to human interaction. And in fact, the more conservative a market is, often the better this works because it stands out, right? People are like, and your subject line on these emails is, Jamie, quick video for you, right? And somebody sees that and they're like,
oh, if anyone on the call right? sells to Fed or SLED, you are a unicorn of unicorns because this is so ripe for opportunity in Fed and SLED.
Yeah, that's great. So state, local, and federal, and where you wouldn't expect it, right? But it even differentiates you at a higher level.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I know we're tight on time. So if you want to move ahead, I want to just highlight these are different stories that emphasize some of the different use cases that we are seeing and that power of humanizing. And I'll keep these really short. Lumavate, just the one story that inspires me there is they've been using videos paired up with sort of synchronized campaign. So they're using the intent signals that Jamie referred to say, these are the 15 accounts that we should focus on right now. They are then orchestrating a targeted campaign that includes custom videos, that includes a direct mail, that includes targeted advertising and things like that. And they are focusing in and seeing massive success in breaking into those top key accounts. And those videos are a key part to getting those responses work super, super well. With the team at HubSpot, they have increased their response rates and opportunity development from their sales development organization by 4 times, which is an astronomical number. And I keep pressing them on it, and they keep showing me the data that says it's true and it works. And their teams that have infused videos into their cadences are just simply seeing better responses because of being visual and personal. And the last one there with Thomas at Modus is a great example where he's an account executive who's selling into big enterprise, their 6-7 figure deals. And he's using videos in very targeted ways to introduce himself into different people in those accounts. And because he knows he's got to make a lot of friends to move a deal forward and they can't all get on a Zoom call. So he'll actually make custom videos for different people in the potential buying committee to introduce himself, to explain his value prop in terms that they care about. And back to that notion of, you know, do they care about making money, saving money, reducing risk? He'll put it in that language, but him in talking about it on camera, he says makes such a difference for him. And he often never has to meet them personally and try to find schedules aligning to close a deal because they've already met him through video. So just different examples of way people are doing this. And I think it's such
Tyler,
an idea.
just not to be a tech nerd here, but there was a bunch of questions around people like, is this attached to an email or is this embedded? Yep. Whether you want to show it or talk to about it, team, or just as Tyler's talking about this, from the user experience, this is dead simple. This is not attaching a PDF.
Yeah. So it's, the really quick on it is with Vidyard, what you do is you hit the Vidyard button in your Chrome browser or right in Gmail or Outlook that it plugs into. It says, do you want to record a webcam video or a screen capture video? You record your video. As soon as it's ready, it's hosted on its own dedicated page. And you can simply, again, one click to put the thumbnail image of the video. That is a hyperlink to the page to watch it. So you're not actually attaching a video because that will get blocked by the firewalls. It's simply a thumbnail image and then a hyperlink to say, watch your video here, which makes it super simple. And that's the most important thing. It's like literally easier than typing out an email once you get used to it. And that's part of the power in this. Yeah.
No, and Jamie, thanks for covering that. I think we are getting lots of questions, and even about the ring light, the teleprompter, the tripods. If we'll have contact information at the end, and feel free to reach out to the specific person or to all of us. Happy to answer those questions offline, but again, want to keep us moving. So really, really great discussion. Thank you. So Tyler, maybe you could kind of take us home here on the humanizing side, you know, net this out. What does that mean using video, and how have you seen it used effectively?
Yeah, and this is really just a summary of some of what I just talked about. And you can see there on the screen, guys, if you do want to try Vidyard out, you can actually use it for free. It's unlimited. Have at it. Go nuts. See success. Try it out. There's really no risk to it. So you can hop over there, sign up right now, send me a video by the end of this session. And, you know, ways, again, it's just people are using it in different modes. You can see it up on the screen there to communicate and humanize that process, to drop videos between meeting times, to keep that cadence going, keep their face front and center. Really effective way to do it. And I think that's really all that needs to be said on this, Ray. And if you want to go to the next slide, I love when you and I were prepping for this webinar, you talked about these 3 E's of connecting virtually. And I was like, I love this, because I say basically the same thing, because video is a great way to put these 3 E's out there. So maybe you want to take that one from here.
Well, no, it's interesting because this has come up in our virtual selling offering, and kind of how do we take core selling skills, which is what we do, right? And translate or transition. And most of the skills, right, are still really important. You got to plan for the call, you got to ask good discovery questions, et cetera. But when we look at, well, what's different, it's even more important to show up with energy and have that passion, especially when people have been on 6 or 8 hours of Zoom calls or virtual calls all day. So bring in the energy, what can you do to really engage? And then how do you ask questions and have that call to action, right? So that we're bringing them in. And those questions, it's like, well, how does that sound? Or do you have any questions? You know, I'm a virtual facilitator, right? So I deal with this all the time, which is you don't ask the close-ended question, you make it very specific. So thinking about things, hey, how do you see this working in your environment? What challenges do you see that this might bring up for you? How can we leverage this, you know, given your situation? So we're engaging them in a different way. And I can't say enough about showing up with empathy, which is understanding where they are, understanding what the last 6 months may have meant to them, and then meeting them there, which I think we have the opportunity to do on video as well, to say, hey, I understand and I'd like to learn more. And it's a bit about just being curious and listening, but thinking about their situation. So we're connecting on a different level. We're building that relationship. So Tyler, love to hear, you know, how are you guys doing that, or coaching people to do that using video?
Well, I think this is such an important point. Like, as we are, even with video, it's still, you know, a 2-dimensional medium, and it doesn't really replace those in-person, you know, engagements. But I think it is your best way to be able to put your energy out there to show them that you're there to help, right? That you really want to connect with them, to, you know, engage them through more impactful storytelling, to show your human side and connect with them on those more personal levels. So I think it's, you know, video offers so many ways to do that. And I think the most important aspect of that is how you represent yourself on camera and use it for its benefit, right? Video is not a way to sit back and read your email just like this because blah, 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 right? It's like, this is your chance. This is your one chance to get the hands going, right? To stand up, to show them, hey guys, I am so excited to be working with you. You know, this and that and the other thing. And I hope the kids are good. And how about that local sports team, right? Like, this is a way to build relationships. And I think that's the real golden nugget there, is use it as a personal medium to connect with people, not just as a different way to deliver the same message.
Can I add to this? My favorite part of video, beyond the humanizing and the synthesizing, is, I can't stress this enough. You're a seller. You have a total addressable market. You're trying to figure out, where do I spend my time wisely? It's the buying intent data. It's so critical because it helps me understand, because I can track buying intent. I use this whenever we send a proposal or a statement of work. We record every proposal and every statement of work, because it's going to float around the buying committee. I need to see if they're opening it, because if they're not, if it has not landed on the CFO's desk, I know this isn't a real deal. So I use the buying intent data as important as the video itself. Yeah.
Well, it's neat. We didn't talk about this, but again, with tools like Vidyard, you'll actually get a notification to say this person watched the video and they watched it 10%, 70%, 100% of the way through. So it's actually a really neat, to your point, our team will often use it for the signals. They'll record a video for multiple people in an account and address it to say, you know, they won't record a video for every person. They'll say, hey, hey there, it's Tyler of Vidyard here at Sales for Life, I would love to chat more. And then they'll send it to multiple people in that account and sit back and wait for the data to tell them. And they'll see, oh, this person watched the whole thing. This person watched it 10% of the way through. I'm going to follow up with this person over here because they're actively showing engagement.
Correct.
Little things like that are super smart. So yeah, thanks for noting that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Good examples and lots of kind of high value and very practical tips and suggestions here. So I know we're coming up on the top of the hour. I just want to cover the last piece because I think it really resonated as we were prepping with all of us, which is customers need to buy differently today than they did before. And when we know that, you know, some things are true, which is every year there are more stakeholders involved, you know, 6.5 plus people that are somehow influencing your deal. And as I always say, if we're only talking to one person in the account, what are the other 5 people thinking? We don't know what their vote is, right? And they're going to surprise us at the end of the day, even if our key contact says, oh no, I'm the decision maker, I got it. Well, chances are there are another 5 or 6 people behind the scenes. So I love the idea of now we have a way of seeing if things are getting forwarded around. We can ask, well, who else should get this? Can I forward it on? So we want to be able to do that, and we need to help our customers buy differently, which may mean, hey, look, I'm going to send you a video that's going to be a capture, you know, that's going to capture the key components of this proposal. I'd like you to forward it around because I think it's a good summary. You know, does that make sense? Or enabling them to be able to leverage this, because there's nothing worse than you lob the proposal over, they go silent, you have no idea what's happening, and then a month later or a week later even, your sales manager is calling or VP of sales is calling saying, well, what's happening here? Why didn't you close the deal? And we don't know, right? So I think this arms us with a way to do that. It puts a face on our proposal. It helps guide them through that buying process. And, you know, Tyler, I think you identified a number of these places where you're seeing it very successful at each stage, even handling objections, right? Hey, here's your objection. I just want to record a short video of making sure I understand it and how we might address that given the situation. So lots of good examples there.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And a lot of this allows you to actually explain those things in human terms, in regular language, as opposed to trying to type them out. And again, I think that's a lot of that power. It's just like you're having a conversation with them and it can come off much more effectively. So great,
absolutely.
Great.
So, you know, going back to this idea of the sales call model and where our customer is, I think we should really spend time thinking about where are they in that process and what's the appropriate play, if you will, right? Starting even with, how do we book that meeting? But then for each stage, what can we be doing really to engage them differently, to leverage those videos, to show up with energy, right? That we can provide really at each stage along the way based on where they are. one of the things we encourage and provide in our training is we should really be having a conversation with our customers to say, help me understand where you are in this process. Because if we think that they're, just kicking tires and learning, but they're actually in the evaluation stage, boy, we got catch up to do, or maybe we want to disqualify and go work on something else, but we may better figure it out. I love just even showing the slide and saying, hey, help me understand, where are you in this process? Great, we'll provide you the appropriate information. And now we have another tool to do that, which is video, right? To be able to help you guide you through to the next stage. I don't know if you guys have any other comments on this, but I thought it was important to kind of wrap that up.
Jamie's phone is ringing off the hook now from
yeah,
all of this.
Exactly.
Hey, thanks for the lead.
Right. All right. So let me take us home here. I mean, we covered a ton of information. We talked about this idea of digital selling and self-generated pipeline, what best-in-class companies are doing. There was a lot of chats and questions about research, so please follow up. We'll get you whatever, both the slides and recording of the event, as well as if you want to follow up individually for any of the research that was quoted here. We can provide whatever information is appropriate. We talked about leveraging video, so a lot of best practices and tips on that, and then helping our buyers through that process. So I want to be sensitive to our time, providing some general contact information and wrap up here. Love to continue this dialogue because it's been really rich, and I appreciate everybody chiming in. But I'd like to just give both of you a minute to maybe encapsulate for you, how does your company and your, perspective come into play here? What can you offer for our audience? And, just maybe you can wrap this up since we're coming at this from 3 different directions. But Jamie, why don't you go first in terms of where does Sales for Life come in here?
We help companies create sales pipeline, and that happens either on the net new side or with your customer success or channel side, upselling, cross-selling, retaining the customer. It's about opening doors and opportunities in which your company, Ray, kind of takes it from door opener to close, right? So,
absolutely. So Tyler, maybe you can help us out. Where does Vidyard come in? I think
so yeah, here at Vidyard,
great things. Yeah.
Yep. I know I'm trying not to, but at here at Vidyard, we're a technology company. We have a product to make it really easy for any sales reps to record and send custom videos, to track how people are engaging in those, and to integrate it into their sales process. So you see the link up on there. You can feel free to go use it for free. Check it out, and we'll take it from there. So again, thanks for having me on here, Ray. And back over to you. Tell us about SRG, Ray.
Yeah, well, and as I said, we're a sales and sales management training company. So we love to pull this together and say, all right, now how do we improve the performance of the sales team by improving their skills, right? Leveraging some of these tools and technologies. So it's really a nice play actually to weave the 3 together. We are offering a virtual selling workshop. There was a question also that came up about selling to the C-suite. So we do have a half-day offering on that. How do you engage? How do you get those conversations? And leveraging video and those types of things. So I know Alonzo is anxious for me to turn it back to him because we want to talk about wrap up and also the survey. We would love to get your thoughts. But Tyler, Jamie, thank you again very much for your engagement. Really fun conversation. We could go for hours, but we only have our limited time today. So Alonzo, back to you to take us home.
Thank you, Ray. I second that it was a candid conversation. In the interest of time, we are wrapping up on time, but a really quick announcement before we close. As soon as we close the webinar, there will be a short survey showing up. We appreciate any feedback you may have for us. We are constantly working on improving this webinar series for you. So any comments, anything that you have to share with us, thank you so much. And on that, thank you, Ray. Jamie and Tyler, it was a great conversation. And to our audience, thank you so much for all the engagement. We're seeing all your comments and participating in the polls. It was a great event.
Thank you very much. And if we didn't get to your questions, we will do that offline, or feel free to reach out. Thanks again. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks all.
Thanks everyone.